All right, so let's kick things off. So for those of you that just joined, I am promoting everyone to a panelist on this call so that you can turn your camera on, make this a little bit more engaging. So if you do see that pop up on your screen, just make sure you hit accept. This is actually the fourth and final webinar of our Princeton Mortgage Pro series. So we're really excited to have you here with us today, wrapping up this series. Definitely won't be the last time that you'll hear a presentation from Mark, just the last one with this name. So I'm going to pass it over to Mark and he's going to get us started for our last webinar.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to do a quick recap of what we did on the other 3 webinars, and then we're going to get into one of my favorite topics in the world, something that kind of changed my life when it was introduced to me, and I think has done a lot for the people here at Princeton as we've kind of made this a huge part of what we do. Player versus victim in terms of those different mindsets. And so welcome to the webinar. So this whole series is about achieving your dreams. And in webinars 1, 2, and 3, we're going to cover today what we went over in the first 3 webinars, just to recap. I think it's all connected. We're going to talk today about things that are inside or outside of our control, that victim's mindset or that player's mindset, and why it's so important to have a player's mindset and to focus on that, and how it takes work. And we're going to figure out, talk about what that means. And then also what you focus on expands, what the compounding impact is of living in a player's mindset or in a victim's mindset. So our first webinar was on objectives and key results, which is our goal setting framework that we talked about, and how we should be setting big, hairy, audacious goals for ourselves, or inspiring objectives. They don't have to be measurable, but it can be, if you're Google, building the world's greatest search engine. If you're in your community, it could be being the best realtor in your town, whatever it is, but having a big objective that can inspire yourself and others to achieve it. Having measurable key results that are things you can measure over time to see if you're on your way to your objectives, and then breaking that down into having scorecards and calendars in terms of how to spend your time getting those things done. The difference between working a system like this and just kind of setting a New Year's resolution type of deal, 8% of whimsical goals get accomplished, 76% of goals with a plan like this that are shared with somebody else that you respect can get accomplished. And so obviously huge differences there. Talked about to-do lists being evil and how to spend our time. To-do lists, the main reason that they're evil is because you can just keep adding to the list, you can say yes to everything and it feels so good, whether you have a plan or time to do it. And so it leads to us overcommitting ourselves or overreaching a lot of times. Whereas if we take that to-do list and put it into our calendar and know where that time is going, we can really avoid the pain that comes along with not budgeting our time correctly. And it enables us to not just be such people pleasers when we say yes to everything, and just having that list every day. In fact, 41% of the stuff that we put on the to-do list never actually gets done statistically. Oh, our third thing that we did was our 5 laws of stratospheric success from the Go Giver co-authored by Bob Berg, our friend. And we had the law of value, law of compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. But basically, at the core of this, it's how do you become the person worthy of attracting business and putting that time into it and getting those things done. It's an amazing book. You guys should check it out. So I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen for a minute here, because I think this is a more interactive part of this. And if you guys can hear it, put your video on, great. If you can't, I understand people are at work, in their car, whatever it is that they're doing. But I'm going to stop sharing for a minute, because I think it's more fun if we can do this together. So this is an apple. Raise your hand if you've never seen one before. Good, no one raised their hand. I think we're okay. All right, so we're gonna play a game. It's interactive. If you can unmute and answer for me, that would be great. Why did the apple fall? It's not a trick question. Why did the apple fall? Anyone want to take a guess?
Gravity.
So let it go.
So I heard gravity. And gravity was the first answer. And then I heard an alternate theory, because I let it go. Right? Did you hear those? Somebody said gravity and somebody said because I let it go.
The tree let it go.
Yeah, for Isaac Newton maybe, but for here today, it was I let it go. Right? That's why the apple fell. Right? Who's right? Which one of those 2 things is correct?
Both.
They're both correct. That's right. They're both true. So truth in this case is not enough to choose how you think about what just happened. What is true is not enough. Both things are true. Gravity is true, and the fact that I let it go is true. So which one does it make sense to focus on?
The one you can control.
The one you can control, right? Why is that? Because if the answer is simply gravity, you're like, Mark, it's gravity. I know it's gravity. That's the most important answer. It's like, well, okay, then why isn't the apple falling now?
You're holding it.
I'm holding it, right? And so when we focus on the part that we don't control, we're giving up, we are forgetting what our ability to respond is or what our impact is. We're disempowering ourselves. So when we focus, when the first answer, we have to choose one of those two answers being the first thing we focus on. The fact that I let it go is the part that I can control. I'm giving myself the power, right? I'm giving, so the alternative seems crazy. To constantly focus on the thing you can't control seems crazy. You're just constantly disempowering yourself. It doesn't make sense. But gravity is actually most people's first answer to that question, right? And so let's play some other games. How many of you guys have ever been late to a meeting? Nobody? Oh, it's everybody else who's not here that gets late to meetings. Some of you guys were late to this meeting, right? What happens in a work setting when we ask people, oh, why were you late? Anybody want to volunteer why they were late to this meeting? They're like, yes, I was late. Why was I late? Play a game. Come on, it's so fun to volunteer.
I wasn't paying attention to the time.
Wasn't paying attention to the time. That's
I was
good.
multitasking and trying to order things on the computer.
So let's hold on to that one for a second. Nicole says she wasn't paying attention to time. Dina, why were you late? You're going to say something?
Oh, I'll blame it on my children.
You blame it on your children.
Yes.
Cool. Any other answers for why they were late?
I actually work full time, so I'm at my full-time job and watching this on my phone.
Okay, so great. So that's a perfect example. All those things are true. But what Nicole said was a player's mindset. I screwed up, lost track of time. It was me. The other people said it's my kids or my full-time job, right? And two of those things are not within our control. In fact, most of the time when people say, why are you late for work? Traffic, right? My alarm didn't go off. That's my favorite one. My alarm didn't go off, as if the alarm chose all on its own to not go off. You had nothing to do with it. You did everything correctly and the alarm chose not to go off. I was on a phone call with somebody yesterday and they called me back like, oh, I'm so sorry. My thumb hit the off button. No, you hit the off button. It wasn't your thumb. You did it, right? And so we just established with the apple, right? It's crazy to disempower ourselves when it comes to that, right? Both things are true. In fact, in life, everything can fit on one of two vectors, right? Everything can fit on one of two vectors. It's either the things you can control or the things that you can't control. And in almost everything we deal with in our life, both things are apparent. There are things that we can control and there are things that we can't control. But some people are constantly focused on the things they can. I screwed up on the timing. I got distracted, as Nicole said, right? And a lot of people, I'm just picking on you guys because maybe you guys are mostly players all the time. And just in that one answer, you gave a victim answer for this one and I tricked you. We're gonna have some fun with this today. I got a full-time job. My kids did this. My computer didn't work. My teams couldn't get in. We do this all the time. Traffic was bad. My last meeting went over, right? I got stuck in the meeting, they'll say, as if the meeting was grabbing them and holding on to them as they tried to go to the next meeting. If we know that this is crazy to disempower ourselves, why do we do it?
I don't feel it's disempowering.
What was that, Arthur?
I said, I don't feel, if you say I had another meeting that I was scheduled at, and I'm late to this because that other meeting that I had to be at went over, I don't feel that's disempowering oneself.
Cool. Is it more empowering to say, I chose to stay at the other meeting?
Yes,
So
that's actually more honest. Yes.
right. So the answer is, I actually had the other meeting was a higher priority for me. I chose to stay until the end.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Right. So
Mhm.
yeah, and yes, because you're right. Both things are true, and it's not necessarily disempowering, right? But what you're saying is this other thing was more important to me. It was more important for me to stay in that meeting than it was for me to show up to this meeting on time. And that's okay. That's what we call radical candor. It's honesty, and people will start to really trust you when you start to take ownership of those things, right? But it's so easy to feel like life is happening to us. I had to stay. I committed to the other meeting. Well, you committed to my meeting too, right? And so how we talk about these things will matter. I'll explain that. Nicole, what were you going to add?
I think a lot of it is feelings of guilt. You know, we are guilty because we're not measuring up even to ourselves. And so we kind of try to buffer that.
Yes, it's actually, it just feels better when it's not your fault. We want to be innocent. It's not me. Liz and I work together, and I've blown her up on a couple of these. Something will break. She's like, it's not my fault. I'm like, well, then whose fault is it? It's like, oh, well, I guess I am in charge of the marketing. Maybe it is my fault, right? You have to go back to that, right? But it's like, it feels so good in that moment to say it's not my fault. I didn't do it. My alarm clock didn't go off. It was the traffic, right? My kids, my job. It feels so good. But the cost of innocence is impotence. Everybody laughs when I use that word. In order to be part of the solution, you must be part of the problem. When we constantly play the victim, and by the way, this is not a you problem. This is all of society's happening. It is very hard in this country or this world right now that we live in to have a player's mindset. We are constantly rewarded, at least in that moment, for having a victim's mindset, right? If you walk into a meeting at work and you're late and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, the traffic, people might move on to something else very quickly. My kids, right? So, oh my God, if you say something happened with my kid, it's like, well, now I can't say anything. It was the kid. So it's okay if they were late, right? It just feels so good. But the answer is, hey, I chose to prioritize this other thing, right? There might be a cost for that in that moment if you're in an unhealthy work environment, or it's easier to get through that thing. But the reality is that there's a compounding effect of acting like you're at the effect of your environment versus that you are the thing playing into your environment, that you have a responsibility. And I don't mean responsibility is in like you're in charge. I mean, responsibility is in the ability to respond. A lot of times we actually could have left that other meeting early, but we were embarrassed. We didn't want to draw attention to ourselves. We didn't say to everybody, hey guys, I have another priority. How many times do we actually, the second meeting is actually a bigger priority for us, but we're afraid to say that to the people we're in the first meeting with. So we stay in the crappy meeting that we don't see a lot of value in because we don't want to hurt that person's feelings or embarrass them or embarrass ourselves. And then we end up blowing it and showing up late to the second meeting. We are bad at this in terms of making those decisions because we're constantly trying to take the easy way and not be offensive and not be the one responsible. We want to feel innocent. Right? And so these are the things, by the way, this starts at a very young age. When my child comes up to me and they go, Daddy, the toy broke. The toy broke? It spontaneously combusted? It was a suicidal toy? No. You mean you broke the toy? But why don't they say that? We learned this at a very early age. Daddy, the milk spilled. By itself? Probably not. You spilled the milk. And so it feels good to not take ownership. Or worse, it's like, why'd you hit your sister? Well, she hit me first. It's not my fault. I didn't start it. Right? We're constantly looking for that innocence. But this plays into everything we do in every aspect of our lives. And as realtors or loan officers, a lot of people on this call, here's one that's like, the subliminal message that you're sending your clients and your partners is so bad. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just so busy right now. You're too busy for my business? Too busy for this to do what you said you're going to do? And so as a society, we've actually learned to let a bunch of these things go. Right? It's actually what I would call a negotiated truce. If you don't call me on my bullshit, I won't call you on yours. Right? We do this in our families too, right? Hey, I'll be there at 5 o'clock. You show up at 5:07, the person's waiting for you. It's like, I'm going to let that go because tomorrow I'm going to be late and I don't want to hear about it. Right? We have these negotiated truces, right? So we learn this at an early age. Here's another example. Have any of you guys ever been stuck on an escalator? No, probably not. You might be stuck on an elevator. How do you get stuck on an escalator?
You quit
No, right?
walking.
Well, you
You
can
can
walk
just-
up.
you
If
can
it's
just
stopped, you
walk.
walk up. Yeah.
You can stop and walk up, right? But if the escalator breaks, you could technically say, I'm sorry, I'm late to the meeting and I got stuck on the escalator. You could just choose not to walk up the stairs. That would seem ridiculous, right? Well, all around me all the time, I hear people giving me those other things, and to them, it feels so real, right? I couldn't get my work done because of this thing or that thing or whatever else it is. And to them, it's like so real. And to me, all I hear is escalator. You chose not to walk up. It sounds just as ridiculous to me as the escalator question when I hear these different excuses, right? And so you will lose friends, by the way, if you start operating as a player. Because here are the questions. By the way, and this is the number one, if you can get there for yourself, think about what you're doing to other people when you ask victim questions, right? So you have somebody in your life who comes home from work. They're so upset with their boss. And here are the questions we start asking right away. I'll give you that. Oh my God, what happened to you? What happened to you? Who's to blame? What did he do wrong? What should he have done differently? What should he have to do to fix this? By asking those questions, you are a drug dealer. You're a drug dealer. It feels so good for that other person to be like, oh, my boss was mean to me. Oh my God, what did he do? What should he have to do to fix this? You know how you lose friends? You ask player questions. Oh my God, what did you do wrong? Well, I didn't do anything. Well, maybe that's the problem if you didn't do anything. Why was he mad at you? What did you do? What are you going to do about it now? What are you going to do next? What can you learn from this? What can you do to make sure it doesn't happen again? Those are player questions. People tend to get mad at you when you ask those questions. I had somebody in my life, somebody very close, a family member, who would come home and tell me they're not including me in any of the meetings. They're pushing me out. I hear this all the time. They don't value me. And I can't help it. I'm a boss. I have people work for me. I can't help but ask the player questions. It's like, well, why do you think they don't value you? Why do you think they're making the decision to keep you out of the meeting? If you were in the meeting, what value would you be able to deliver? And it was like, that's not the point. I've been here for 11 years. They should know what I can contribute. They just don't. It's because they're friends. It's because they're this. Maybe it's because they don't think you have any good ideas. How can you show value to get yourself back into the meeting? And so it's player versus victim. And those conversations are difficult. But if again, we have these two vectors, it's not my fault. There was traffic today, but I left early, didn't leave early, could have left earlier, right? There was gravity, but I let the apple drop. I was late for the meeting because the other meeting did go long, but I chose not to leave. And so and you guys all know people in your life who every time you see them have a story about this thing that happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's exhausting to be around those people, right? Every time it's like, oh, it's like they ordered furniture. The furniture's got a big dent and it's broken. It's the end of the world. Well, I don't know. Everybody orders furniture and sometimes that stuff goes bad. And so you focus on what you can do about it and what the next thing done, or maybe you don't order from that place. But by wanting to share that negative experience, what you're actually saying is, please give me some drugs. Please tell me you feel bad for me and it's not my fault.
Right.
Interesting.
What do you say, Arthur?
I'm saying it's an interesting perception or perspective.
Yeah, it's a total mind flip when you get there. Nicole, what were you going to add?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I was first introduced to what you're talking about through Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And most of my life, I've been in the victim place. And over the years of working with that book and with my life, what I found was that giving up that victim mentality is pretty hard, because what it means is when you take responsibility for everything, then you have to take the consequences of it as well. But the final big move for me to get there was to ask myself the question of who has authority over me, who has the right to tell me what I think of myself. So when I am choosing to be late or something, I also have to realize that some people are going to get pretty pissed at me. But if that's what I chose, that's what I chose, and I'll take the consequences. And you're right, I've lost friends.
Yeah, guys, this is a choice, right? You know, and it was introduced to me in my first ever sales job. And we were in a call center, we would get leads. And everybody in the call center got 5-6 leads a day. And it was round robin, but they were the same types of leads. Over time, all the leads were the same. But the people who consistently didn't sell loans would say, I'm getting bad leads. And the people that were consistently at the top never talked about their bad leads. And then my manager said to me, hey, when it's good, it's you. And when it's bad, it's you. And I was like, yes, now I have all of the power. So when I'm having a bad day or a bad week, good news, I can fix it. When it's bad, it's me. When it's good, it's me. I get to celebrate my wins. I don't have to feel guilty that I got the good leads this week either. When it's good, it's me. When it's bad, it's me. And so that is the player's mentality in everything that you do, right? Just like any other drug, it feels good at first to be the victim. But what happens when you're a drug addict? It kills you. It destroys your life. And it's the same thing with the player versus victim part of this. Being a player is hard. It takes discipline. You have to take responsibility. You have to feel all of it's on you to make the difference when things are going well or not going well. But the compound effect of that is a better life. Every time you make the strong and courageous decision to take responsibility and focus on what you can control, you build up a little more muscle, like going to the gym, and you become a little better at it. It becomes a little bit easier. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've been living this way for a while, a long time. My whole sales career, I focused on this. And then when I got to Princeton, we started really talking about the frameworks of this and doing coaching on it. I can't even let myself get to the place where I start thinking about the things that are outside of my control anymore, to the point where, like, sometimes it seems like I'm very insensitive to other people. I don't want to hear about the market if you're not performing. I don't want to hear about it. And if you can't, you want the fastest way to do it is stop measuring yourself against what you did last year. Do the hard work of getting statistics about market share and start thinking about how you're going to steal more market share this year. Focus on the part that you can control, not the part that you can't. Can you fix the market? So why are we talking about it? Is talking about it going to give you some sort of extra gleam of information that's going to help you do your job better? Maybe, and in that case, we can talk about it. When we start talking about what our goals are and what we're going to do this year, the market can't be the thing that you focus on. It feels good. Oh, my numbers are down. It's the market. I know a guy who I really like, who's very well connected in Charleston and is a realtor who never sells any real estate. And for the last 2 years, he's been telling me that it's the market. Every time I see him, I said, dude, don't ever say that to me again. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I know a bunch of realtors who moved here in the last 3 years knowing nobody, and they're doing 20 million this year. You've lived here your whole life, you know everybody, and it's not the market, it's you. And he's like, all right, man. He's like, that's tough. I'm like, I'm saying that to you because I love you. Like, I literally love you and I want to help you. It's not the market. Let me be the bad guy. I'm not going to be your drug dealer. I'm not going to be your drug dealer. I can't do it. Right? I actually got into a fight with somebody in my family last night over this, who was blaming something on themselves. Literally, they had to leave my house. I swear. And I wasn't even being that upset. I was just like, I'm not feeding into that narrative. Can't do it. Nicole, what were you going to add?
Oh, the latest episode of mine in dealing with something like this was I went to a class about how to, do better in your business sort of thing. And then I did a follow-up with the guy about what specific issues I had for my performance and stuff. And he told me you know, some things like, well, you're not doing blah, 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 blah. And it's kind of stings. But then what the result of it was, I went home and I looked at my situation, and this is where who has authority over me, he gave me the same old formulas for improving my presence and stuff. And I looked at my reality and went, that's not working for me. I can't follow that. And so I did do the Apple thing, I'm holding the Apple. So I went, guess what? I'm not going to use that model for marketing myself because it isn't working for me. So the one I'm going to use is, I know this person and I'm going to up my service to those people that I do serve. And they're telling people. So I'm not a high performance realtor or anything, but my influence went up 100%. Even though I'm not doing the things that you're supposed to do to market yourself, I'm doing the things that matter in my orbit, and it's helping.
It forces honesty, right? And so we talk about, one of the scorecard, right? Which is in our last webinar, or maybe it was 2 ago, the scorecard in terms of time management. The scorecard is just a mirror, right? The scorecard is the mirror the same way a calorie counter on your phone is the mirror, right? If you want to lose weight, part of the fact that you want to lose weight might be because you don't have the best genetics. Part of it is definitely your diet. Part of it is definitely your exercise. You can choose to focus on the bad genetics part, or you can choose to focus on the pieces of it that you can control. And you can't get mad at the calorie counter if it doesn't give you the results that you want. That's the honesty. You know why we stop getting on the scale? Because we don't want to look in the mirror. It forces us to take responsibility, right? If a year from now I follow up with you and I'm like, hey, are you working on that player or victim stuff? And you're like, no, it wasn't really a very good seminar. Well, then that's a victim mentality, right? But if you come out of this and if you work at it and you're a player about it, then you'll come out of it and make a big difference. It's the same thing as any other sales seminar that you go to. Most of the people don't do the stuff, right? And so at its very basic core, do we want to act like our children when it comes down to the milk spilled, the toy broke, and have those types of things? Or do we want to take responsibility, which is to say, I broke the toy, I chose to stay in the other meeting, I double booked myself, I didn't give myself enough time between meetings, I committed to doing too many different things. It happened to me last night. I was reading for work, and somebody, our coach here, Denise Martin, does coaching for us and has a long track record, said, hey, I sent you this other email. Did you look at it? I said, I saw the email. I haven't looked at it. I said, I will look at it tonight and I'll let you know. And as I said it, I realized that was not true. Now, I could have called her today and said, I got busy, I got tired, I fell asleep. But I actually said, Denise, I made a really bad decision at that moment in telling you that I was going to do it. And I overbooked this. I prioritized my sleep over reading the thing, and I will do it this morning. I'm taking my power back in that conversation. And so for yourself, do this, but the only way this will work is if the people that you spend the most amount of time with in your life also agree to subscribe to this and call you out. It doesn't have to be an aggressive call out. When someone says to you, oh, I can't believe this thing happened to me, instead of saying, what did they do? Just say, oh, well, what are you going to do about it? Or what did you do to contribute to that situation happening? What can you learn from it as we go forward? By asking those player questions, we create a very different narrative. So I'm going to hop back into the webinar just to see all the things that Dan put together for me that I missed in some of this explanation. We'll go through and just get some more formality on it. And some people I know are visual learners, and so maybe it's helpful to see it. So I'm going to pull that back up. But any questions about a different scenario or any other scenarios that come up where you're like, man, I think you want to share where it's like, man, I think I've been taking the easy way out on this, or letting myself down by blaming the situation. And by the way, this is sensitive stuff. Like sometimes it's like around like, people are telling me about their health things. It's like, oh my God, I have this bad back. It's like, yeah, maybe, but you don't really stretch. You don't really exercise. You don't have the best eating habits. You have this thing going on. What are you doing about it? And that can get that's how you can lose some friends, right? But the reality is I don't want to be your drug dealer. I want to be the person who maybe motivates you to do something about it that leads to better outcomes. Focus on the things that you can control. So the player is in the game and can affect the outcomes. The victim is out of the game and can only suffer the consequences of the actions of others. So again, we talked about our children, child gets sick, there's a leak in your roof, there's traffic on your way to the meeting, the market goes crazy. These are things outside of our control, right? Feels good to be innocent, but they're the things that are outside of our control. When things go wrong, it's about responsibility, the ability to respond. So here's some victims mindset stuff. I would have gotten to the meeting on time, but some jerk in front of me was driving too slow. I would have made the deadline I promised to make, but my computer went down. I would have done better this year, but the market is turning. They're focusing on the things that are outside of their control. It's not my fault. They're asking for drugs, and they're going to be gravitating towards the people in their lives that are willing to deal them. And we're going to talk about the importance of that too. Why do we adopt a victim's mindset? Because it feels so good not to be wrong. It's not my fault. Players, I'm sorry I'm late. I could have anticipated traffic and left earlier. I realize I'm not going to make the deadline I promised, so I'll have it done on X instead. And in the future, I'll make sure I'm giving more accurate deadlines. The market is what it is. I will focus on the prospect activities, networking events, forming relationships that will move me close to my goal in the short and long term. Or when I set goals next time, I'll anticipate or hedge based on the market, right? So in other words, maybe my goals should be around market share and not around units and volume, right? There's going to be X amount of transactions in my area this year, or I want to have this percentage of the transactions in my area this year. So then you can't blame the market. You're not even focused on it. The player's mindset is freeing. Why? Because you're taking back control and it's self-perpetuating. So let's talk about this thing. I talk a lot here about psychology. I was a psychology major in college. I like biology and the brain, how those things work. We have a part of our brain called the RAS, the reticular activating system. It's a network of neurons located in the brainstem that plays a role in many of our daily functions, such as sleep. It also helps determine which information and stimuli filter in or out of our consciousness. So if you're on TikTok at all, and these things come up for you, you'll see there's a bunch of people doing videos on the brain doesn't know about the negative, right? You hear golfers talk about this all the time. If a golfer sits there on the tee and goes, don't hit it in the sand trap, the ball goes in the sand trap. If the golfer says, hit it on the fairway, it hits on the fairway. If you say sand trap, whether it's positive or negative, that's where the ball is going to go. And so when you're a victim, right? I'll follow along with this before I get out of it. So when you buy, so you guys will notice your RAS working when you buy that new car, right? You buy a new car, you never noticed that car on the road before, maybe you saw it once or twice, suddenly you buy that car, you see that car everywhere, right? What you focus on expands. Well, imagine if you are constantly in that victim mindset. You're constantly looking for ways to get your next drug. Because by the way, when we're on drugs, we're always looking to get more, right? So if we're in that victim mindset, we're looking constantly for the ways that we can give away our control so we can feel better, right? Then all we see around us are the excuses and the reasons why we're not succeeding. It happens, right? So the first time you do it, you're like, oh, it's great. Hey, this is what happens too. You guys know this, right? Why are you late for the meeting? Traffic. Cool, you got away with it. Why are you late the next day? Traffic. Got away with it. Oh, cool, this traffic thing is working. I don't have to leave earlier. I'm just going to keep coming in and saying traffic, right? And so then all of a sudden it gets really easy to start blaming everything else, right? And so we focus on expands. If you're looking for reasons it's not your fault, you will find them. Conversely, if you're constantly looking for the reasons it is your fault, you will find them. And that is magical if you accept the fact that you're human. There's always going to be things you're not getting right, but you want to learn, you want to grow, and you want to move towards the things you can control. So normally, so if you see two situations, right? You're late for work today, and you're trained to constantly look for the things that you can do differently. Suddenly you're like, maybe there's a better path to work. I should probably leave a little bit earlier. Maybe I should prepare, differently. Maybe I should tell people I'm going to do this one remotely. Maybe I should have a call-in option if I hit traffic. You're suddenly looking for a million things that you've done. But if you're in victim mindset, it's so easy. Just find a reason it's not your fault. My alarm didn't go off. The traffic was there. The car didn't start. My kid needed this. I had to go here first. This errand took longer. And it's so easy because if you're just in that, you just start to keep feeding the beast, feeding that drug. Right? So are we working out where we're building the muscles to take responsibility? Or are we getting more drugs where we need more of them so that we can feel like we're not the person to blame? So if you allow yourself to keep a victim's mindset, you'll see problems everywhere. A player's mindset, you'll see opportunities all around you, right? We are dealing with a volatile market, but as real estate agents or loan officers, you must flip the script for yourself. At some point, the market will turn back around. Focus on what you can control. So this, by the way, Loan Depot just came out with their earnings statement for the last quarter. Their CEO said he thinks this is the worst 90 days he's ever seen for mortgage industry profitability. That's interesting information for me because it lets me know I have to make some really hard decisions to make sure that our company is going to do well in these times. And I can't wait on it. But does that make me feel better about the fact that we also have to make those difficult decisions? No. I'm focused on what I can do to control the situation, not on the market. It could be a drug. You're like, well, it's bad for everybody, so it's not that big a deal. It's bad for us. It doesn't work that way. I'm focused on, awesome, I have this information now. What can I do to respond? What can we do differently? Where can we steal market share? How can we pick people up? How can we solve for this? How can we be one of the 5 or 10% of companies that does more business this year and not one of the 90 or 95 that does less? Because in every market, we know there are winners and losers, but the players are the ones who end up being the winners. Have a genuine desire to operate from a place of control. Accept that there are things you can still control in every situation. Name your dream, write it down, and tell people about it. Going back to our OKRs. Focus on the important but not urgent activities that will lead you towards your dream, the scorecard stuff we talked about. Be a go-giver. Practice gratitude and have faith that you're capable of achieving your dreams. This is kind of a summation of all the things we've gone over the last 4 sessions. If you become really good at time management, set really ambitious goals with clear key results that you're focused on. You're constantly focused on how you contribute and give back to others by giving yourself. And you accept that when things go wrong, you're going to focus on the things that you can control, not the things that you can't. You will double your business or double your market share over the next 12 months. Those are the secrets. Now, most people, even the ones who have been coming to all of these sessions, probably won't do all of that stuff. But for the people that do, or at least do some of it, or maybe even most of it, you will see tremendous results. This stuff is all easy to do. The problem for each of you is that it's easier not to do. It's all easy to do, but it's even easier not to do. All right, so I think that's, I had another slide in there, but it seems to have broken. Oh my God, it broke. I think I broke it. You're gonna call me out, Kathleen? Look, she was so excited to call me out. Yeah. I broke it. No, actually what it is, I'm terrible at technology and I refuse to take responsibility for how those things go, and I should probably work on that. Actually, it did come up right here, so it does work. It's my fault. Any questions or comments on the training today, Nicole?
I'd like to share something also back to that example where the guy was giving me coaching or whatever. And basically what he said was, looks like you don't have time to do real estate. And it's true, my time really is jammed up. But the part that I want to address when I said about taking responsibility for yourself, who has authority over you. And I'd like to put this book up here. It's called Suggestible You, because one of the parts of that is that I decided I'm not going to feel bad because I can't fit into his model. And so, you know, nope, I'm not going to be a top-notch realtor. I don't want to be right now, but I also don't need to feel guilty because I'm not. And so the approach that I did take was I'm doing better service to the people I do serve. And that's what I need to do for me. But I don't feel guilty that I didn't fit the model.
No, I think that's great. Listen, everything that you've said is about you being self-aware and knowing what you want out of your life right now and making those things happen. We train on those things here every day at Princeton. You know, when we do a lot of coaching and training. It's never about with every single person. It's not like we were just saying you got to do more business. You'll never hear us talk like that here. What we really focus on is, hey, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want? What do you want your life to look like? And all of this stuff is about giving people the tools to build the life that they want. And along the way, things do change. a lot of this drives clarity for people where it's like, I want to do 100 million as a loan officer. And then after they get into this stuff, they're like, actually, that's not really what's most important to me. What's most important to me is doing as much business as I can and being home at 4 o'clock every day for my kids. I want to do as much business as I can in 6 hours a day, not 100 million. Well, that's a different goal. It's a different mindset. But sometimes you have to go through these exercises and have that player's mindset to get to that place. And so I encourage all of you guys as you go forward to say, okay, hey, whatever the thing is right now in your life that it's not going the way you want it to go, good news. It's your fault. You can do something about it, right? And it might mean saying no to something else that you never previously considered saying no to. This thing that you have to do, or this place that you have to be, or these people that you can't let down. Well, you're choosing those things, right? So start changing the way you think about it. I don't have to be home for my kids at 4 o'clock. I choose to be home for them. I want to spend that time with them, or I feel like it's the best thing for me and my family. And so I'm choosing to be home at 4 o'clock every day. Amazing. And by the way, you'll start feeling so much better about it. Instead of feeling guilty that you're leaving work, you're going to feel really great that you're making a good choice for your family because you're now in control. So anytime you find yourself today, by the way, if you can find somebody in your life that will help you with this, like, let's commit to it. Let's just start calling each other out. We start getting victim-y at all. Let's stay away from our victim questions of what did he do wrong? What should he have done? What should he do to fix it? And what should I do? What did I do? Right? Because oftentimes you say, well, it's his problem. Well, you're the one in pain. You're the one talking to me about it 5 hours later. So it sounds an awful lot like it's your problem. And you can't fix him or her.
You fix the way you react.
You can fix your interactions. You can change jobs. You can say you're not going to talk to that person anymore. You can not let that person get to you. You have a million different things that you control, but you can't control that. And so I hope you got anybody else have anything last minute they want to ask about or comment on the training. Well, guys, I hope you found value in the training today.
No, this is very valuable.
Thank you so
I really
much.
liked it.
Cool. I'm going to keep sharing more and more of this stuff on my social media now that I've got some help back in my spirit. One of the things I have a lot of stress and anxiety around posting on social media because every time I go to post, I tell myself the story that nobody cares. And so now I have somebody else doing some of the posting for me. So I do think I'm going to be sharing more stuff on there. So if you like what you're seeing and we're not already connected, shoot me a friend request or connect with me, follow me on Instagram or connect on LinkedIn. I'll be posting that stuff there in between webinars. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Go out there and be players, guys.
I really loved it. I found it super valuable.
Thank you, Nicole. I really appreciate you saying that. Thanks for all your help and your contributions.
Thank you, Mark.